This man saved $1,000 every single day. For 35 straight years, he never missed a day. Yet strangely, he lived like a homeless person. He combed his hair with an old toothbrush. The mirror in front of him was actually pieced together from discarded nail clippers. Even more puzzling, every day he would hang plastic water bottles in midair, carefully prick 3 small holes in each bottle bottom with a needle, and then use the water that sprayed out to take a shower. A shockingly wasteful use of water. After grooming, he put on a tank top and headphones and began his morning workout. But he didn't go to a park. Instead, he exercised in a narrow, eerily cramped stairwell lined with snacks and drinks. After his workout, he took off his headphones and knelt solemnly to pray. But the object of his prayers was just an ordinary little red backpack. Andy treated it with extreme seriousness, not daring to show the slightest disrespect. It was only because of this backpack, which refreshed itself daily, that he had managed to survive in this endless stairwell for 35 years. Carefully, Andy held the backpack in his arms, unzipped it, and took out boxes of juice which he placed neatly against the wall. Then he pulled out a stack of US dollars and casually added it to the pile of cash that had already grown into a small mountain. Finally, he organized the remaining items inside the backpack, sorting each one properly. Then he relaxed, munching on an apple. The old man living upstairs was the complete opposite of Andy. Also trapped for 35 years, Daniel, a police officer, had become withered and broken. He spent his days curled up in piles of garbage, eating instant noodles. He could no longer even stand, and had to crawl to move between floors. His level was filled with heaps of trash and reeked of a pungent odor, but none of that bothered him. After all, everything here reset itself daily. No matter how much he wasted, supplies never ran out. He had long since lost all hope. 35 years ago, while on duty, Daniel had accidentally killed Andy's brother. But in this endless, looping stairwell with no way out, the two had long since let go of their hatred. Andy even helped Daniel with his daily needs. They prayed together before John's body. Daniel had become somewhat senile, but he still remembered having a wife and daughter, and something else important he wanted to tell Andy, but he just couldn't recall what it was. One day, Daniel suddenly clutched his head and screamed in agony. The expression on his face was one of extreme pain. He had finally remembered. He was not actually a police officer, but a little boy trapped on a highway for 35 years. The playing cards that had appeared earlier were traces from a previous layer of this reality. On his way back, Daniel indeed found a brand new police car, so he decided to escape this monotonous life. He packed his bags, set his tent on fire, took his hamster, and got into the police car. But the moment he opened the car door, he lost all his memories. He flipped open a red notebook in the car, which stated that he was a police officer with a wife and kids. Andy wanted to ask him about all this, but before he could even speak, Daniel stopped breathing. Daniel's death sent Andy into unprecedented anxiety and panic. He repeatedly ran up and down the stairwell, trying to calm his restless mind, but it was useless. In just a week, his mental state began to collapse. The narrow, oppressive environment and the gnawing loneliness made him irritable and angry. The once tidy hallway became messy and chaotic under his rage. In utter despair, he pulled out the pistol he had kept sealed away for 35 years. But no matter how hard he tried, the trigger, long since rusted shut, wouldn't budge. After 35 years, the gun had become completely useless. In that moment, the man fully realized he was still trapped forever in this infinitely looping stairwell, with no way out. A man threw a set of keys down the stairs, but the next second, those keys fell from right above their heads. This terrified them. They frantically looked up, but the stairwell was empty, with nothing unusual in sight. Daniel became furious, convinced that someone was trying to scare them, so he immediately rushed upstairs to find the troublemaker. But when he reached the turning point, he was stunned to see that the 10 on the floor indicator had lost a 0, and now clearly read, first floor. Fuming, Daniel returned to the 9th floor. He was now even more certain that someone was messing with him, not only throwing keys to scare them but also secretly changing the floor numbers. He angrily pulled out his gun, pointed it at John, the thief he had caught earlier, and demanded to know if there was an accomplice hiding in the building. John widened his eyes innocently, wondering if his brother Andy had actually arranged something. But Andy looked just as confused. His terrified expression clearly showed he wasn't the mastermind. Seeing that the brothers truly didn't know, Daniel ordered them to stay put while he looked for a way out alone. He quickly went down to the 8th floor and found that the stairwell door had been shut by someone. He pushed hard, but the unlocked door didn't move at all, as if welded shut without even a crack. A sense of foreboding washed over Daniel, and he hurried downstairs. However, the doors on the lower floors were also tightly shut. No matter how hard he banged and shouted, there was no response from behind any of the doors. The building was eerily silent, so quiet it was suffocating. When he made it back to the first floor, a vending machine had inexplicably appeared there. He frantically kicked the main door, desperate to escape the bizarre building. But even after using all his strength, the door remained firmly locked. Daniel completely panicked. He kept running downward, not even noticing the changing floor numbers. It wasn't until he ran into the terrified brothers again that he suddenly realized he had returned to the 9th floor. Seeing Daniel pass by the 9th floor again, the brothers turned pale with fear. They had clearly watched him go upstairs earlier. Yet not long after, Daniel had somehow come back to the 9th floor from the 8th floor below. Faced with such a strange loop, They finally realized they were trapped forever in this stairwell. Whether they went up or down, they would always return to the same point. There was no way out. But Daniel still refused to believe it. He took off his jacket, pulled out his gun, and accused the brothers of drugging him and making him hallucinate. Deep down, Daniel knew all of this was caused by the earlier explosion. He just didn't want to admit it. And he couldn't focus on arguing. During the earlier chase, John had been shot in the leg by Daniel, and now his injury was getting worse. Anxiously, Andy took out his phone but found there was no signal. With no one to save his brother, he broke down and screamed for help. His cries echoed repeatedly in the empty stairwell. Seeing John in agony, Andy wanted to remove the bullet, but he didn't even know how to apply a basic bandage. John believed trying to remove it recklessly would only lead to infection. The only thing they could do was clean the wound with water. Meanwhile, Daniel smashed the glass door of the vending machine. Andy quickly grabbed a bottle of water and handed it to his brother. Feeling sympathy, Daniel also stepped in to help treat the wound. After finishing, Daniel checked the time and realized that 4.5 hours had passed since they entered the stairwell. He went upstairs, opened his wallet, and looked at a photo of his family. A wave of longing washed over him. Today was supposed to be his wedding anniversary, but hearing John's painful moans, he hesitated for a moment before handing his painkillers to Andy. After taking the painkillers, John fell into a deep sleep. Sometime later, Andy couldn't take it anymore. He glared fiercely at Daniel and warned him that if John died, he would definitely go after Daniel's family for revenge. Soon, 20 hours passed. The effects of the painkillers wore off, and Andy was horrified to see John's condition rapidly worsening. His face was deathly pale. John knew he was about to die. With his last bit of strength, he told Andy to live on and make sure he survived. Then, he closed his eyes forever in his brother's arms. But what was even more chilling was that Daniel discovered the items in the vending machine had mysteriously restocked. This pushed Daniel over the edge. He shook the vending machine like a man-man, as if that could break this horrifying cycle. At that moment, Andy angrily shoved Daniel against the wall and snatched the gun from his waist. He was going to avenge John.